Hello everyone. I'm really very happy and really very pleased that we have this presentation today done by Nicolas DURACKA. I've known Nicolas for many years. In fact, I met him when he was a student taking his master's degree. Well, I was not on the jury when he took his PhD, but I was in the audience. And the work that he presented, he defended his thesis in a very brilliant way. Ever since, he has been working in different perspectives and areas. First of all, he was one of our colleagues for a while. And then he took the opportunity of creating something from scratch, which is called the Center of Social Innovation in our hometown. And he is in many networks in terms of social economy and in terms of solidarities as well. So he's really involved in the social fabric of our city. And I'm sure that his presentation will tell you more, not only on our city, on the way that he is at the crossroads of different fields of expertise, but also that it fits into this narratives and transition strategies that we try to analyze in the work that we have collectively undertaken in that book that should be published next year. So I'm very pleased to have him here online today and to listen to him. And I hope that you will have questions to ask him. Because, well, he is really willing to hear what people from different areas of the world may think about his work. And it's going to be a source of motivation for the work already done to improve it, but also to be able to have new ways of dealing with this number of issues that will be presented to you today. So, Nicolas, the floor is all yours, and you've got 40 minutes or so to do your presentation. Thank you.
And thank you, Eric. Thank you, everyone, to be here. I'm very glad to be here and to speak with everyone. I will start my presentation. Yes, I hope it's okay for everyone. Then, like Eric said, I'm working for the CISCA, and the CISCA is the Center of Research, research and participating research in France. I will present you what is CISCA exactly and what is the territory of action. The title of the presentation, it's about the modelisation of what is the way used by the territory to be in something between transition and adaptation about climate change. Okay, everything it's okay with the big problem of our society, what is the climate change. Then the territory here is working around the dialogue between transition and adaptation. And we are building a modelization for the city and the territory around to be in a learning way about these two kinds of response about the climate change. In the case of Clermont Ferrand and the region around, it's a typical case for this learning way. And I hope that it will be that way for you. Then, firstly, I will present to you just really fast my life in the scientific world, because I had a lot of life before, but since 2006 I was in the PhD in communication science. I done this PhD, and after I was a teacher at the University of Clermont Auvergne for 1 year. And like Eric said, I'm really interested about working in networks. I'm working with the organization, and it's really important for me to be outside my office to be a researcher. Then that's why I start to work for an Institut Godin in the north of France for 2 years. And Institut Godin was the first research and development center in the social science in France. It worked in this area since more of 10 years. And it was really the first one that I done this kind of work with the field, with network of about social economy and social change. That's why it was a really good experience for me. And by this experience, I start to work with cisco in well, now 3 years ago. And the cisco, it's like a little sister of Institut Godin, but in Clermont, because it is in the same way. We are working around research and development in social science and for the actors of the territory. Then I was the director of cisco for 2 years, more or less. And now I'm the scientific director because a younger guy is coming and he's taking the director place because it's better to be directing by a younger people than because I think it's the good way for learning. Then Geoffrey is now our director and he is finishing his PhD. Then that's why now I'm scientific director of the cisco, and I'm very glad to be the scientific director. You will see, I hope. Then what is the cisco? The cisco is a scientific place. It's an intermediate place between 3 types of actors. The first one is the university, and all the researchers that are working in the university in Clermont Ferrand, around Université Clermont Auvergne. More the researcher around science, social science, and is the first way that we work around the research. We are working with the social economic actors too, then actors of organization like company, actors of association, actors of cooperative, actors of all the social economics area. And the third one is the public policy area, local authorities area. And we are working to help this kind of actors to improve our capacity to be in the social development and sustainable development. And we are working, really, the cisco are working at the middle place, in the intermediate place between these 3 kind of actors. More precisely, we are working then in France, but in France, in the middle of France, sorry, I don't put something to see exactly where is in the middle of France, but Clermont-Ferrand is really in the middle of France, in Massif Central. You can see a map just here to see what is our area of work. Puy-de-Dôme, it's a department of France. Is really our field of work. It's an interesting field because it's between mountain. You can see a picture of Clermont Ferrand, which is a city just at the really near of volcanoes line. Then it's the biggest line of volcanoes in Europe, and it's a mountain place just all around, and it's a really interesting place because we have a lot of different field of work because this area is really diverse, and it's that way it's really interesting to work in all different areas of this territory. We are working, and it's really important to know, we are working with a little more of 20 local authorities, different kind of local authorities. The biggest one is the Métropole Clermont Ferrand, is the biggest city of the area, Clermont Ferrand. And we are working at the same time with a little village in this territory. We are working with a lot of different kind of local authorities, and it's interesting to have this panel of different local authorities. It's the same way with our work with the socio-economic actors. More or less, it's 15 actors, then they are in the same way really different. We can work with some association, we can work with citizen groups, we can work with company, little companies, but biggest company too, like Michelin. It's one of the biggest company of France, and he is working just here in Clermont Ferrand. Then we are working with a lot of different kinds of socio-economic actors. And we are working with 5 research labs in science, social science. And we are starting to work with more fundamental scientific lab. But the best way for us is working with the social science. We are producing this kind of map. You can see how it's a complete map of our actors. That is a lot of actors interconnected. That it's really interesting to be in the middle of this kind of interconnection, but it's quite difficult sometimes to be in this complex interconnected network, but it's probably the most interesting. It's a difficult work, but the most productive kind of work in the middle of complex systems. Sorry, it's in French, but I put this this graph just to show you what kind of work we are doing with all these kind of actors that I explained. The first way of our work is the fundamental research. We are working with university lab, and we are working with researchers to product some fundamental research. And it's really important for us to be really productive around the fundamental research. It's the base of everyone, and we need a lot of production of knowledge around what we are working about, and especially around social science, especially sustainable development, especially resilience. And we are producing some research, some knowledge around that. It's the first way, producing knowledge. The second one, in black in the graph, it's the applied research, that we are trying to put our knowledge in the field with actors, and we are trying to put the knowledge to produce something. And we are trying to be more close than the other actors of territory. And it's important for us to be in this kind of work, that the produce of knowledge have to be improved by the actors of whole territory. And it's that why we are doing a lot of applied research. The third one in green in the graph is the experimental development. It's the way that we use to build some tools for actors. Because if in the first way we are building some knowledge, In the second way, we are trying to put this knowledge in the networks, in the field. After, we have to create some tools to transform the knowledge in practice. And it's really important for us to build some practice and to work around the institutional transformation of our territory. Institutional transformation, it's transformation of our practices and representation. By transforming practices, we are thinking around tools and tools which act around the transformation, the social transformation. That it's really important for us, the experimental development. And the ultimate one in red, it's the transfer. The transfer in France, it's something about putting our knowledge, putting our all products, and trying to translate its knowledge, translate all these tools in real practice for all actors, but not just in our territory, but more by transfer. We are talking about putting all this knowledge, all these practices, all these tools around. We want to trying to exchange our practices with other kind of actors and with other areas in France and in Europe. And that's why the red one is probably the part where we are today talking here for eucen. That it's important for us to be in exchange of all practices with other kind of actors in other areas of France and Europe. The double helix modelisation, whole modelisation is starting around an actual state that everybody knows probably, but we are building some training workshop. We are building some focus group. We are building some kind of formation with people of all territories, just to explain what is the actual state of our climate change. And we are using three kinds of graphs to trying to better understand what is the state of the knowledge of the actors of the territory. The first one, it's about resources. What is the state of all world resources, and especially about the energy and the petrol energy, and what kind of states we are putting on. And you can see that we are in a kind of period that we are increasing a lot, decreasing a lot, sorry, about what kind of research we can have in the future. That we are just putting that like, okay, it's the first problem, but the first problem of decreasing of research is coming because we had in the past an exponential using of this resource. And this exponential using that you can see in the graph is building something really dangerous for whole planet. It's putting a lot of sorry, I forgot the name in English. It's putting a lot of G's in the atmosphere, and the G's it's increasing the temperature all around the world. It's the second effect of our surconsummation of resources. and increasing of all consumption in the past is building an exponential increasing of the temperature and in the whole atmosphere. After that, we are showing in our workshop that the increasing temperature is building and a dangerous decreasing of our biodiversity. And these three graphs are using in the workshop to better understanding the actual state of knowledge about what it's working on in the whole world. That's a circumsummation of resources, producing a lot of Gs. Gs are increasing the temperature. It's increasing of temperature. It's changing a lot for ecosystem biodiversity. Then it's the actual state. We are in this kind of situation. What is the action of our territory around this actual state? We are trying in whole work, trying to better understand what kind of action, what kind of desire, what kind of narrative have the actors around this actual state. It's that why we have built modeling like that. You can see in green in the center the three actual states of global change. And we are putting a first indicators around all our work with actors in the territory. The first indicators, the first things that it's important to work with all actors, researchers, socio-economic actors, and local authorities. It's the place of information and the narrative linked around this information that actors have in the territory around the climate change. It's the first indicator, because it's really the start point of all our action around sustainable development or resilience. It's really important for us to start by the narrative and to start by the place of information in our work to better understanding what is the start point of our work to change practices and to improve what is a learning city of our territory. After that, after this start point, and I think it's really important around all our work in UCAN, after this start point, the first point, the second one is make transition and resilience a central issue for the territories organization. And if we have a high level of information, and if the narratives are producing some kind of change, we can see after in organizations, and like organization, we are talking about companies, but in local authorities too, all this kind of organization, institutional, non-institutional, in the marketplace or no, all organizations have different sensibility around what is transition and resilience. And it's directly connected by, to the level of information and the level of the narrative inside organizations. That is why it's the second point, and it's really important for us in the model to better understanding what is the second step of what is learning city and learning territory. The third step is the legal framework for action. What is the legal framework? It's now we are in France, in Europe. I don't know exactly what happened in other areas of the world, but in Europe and in France, we have a lot of legal framework, a lot of things that is putting by the authorities to pushing the sustainable development, to push the resilience of our countries, of our territories. But it less using by a lot of local authorities. We have a lot of local authorities that are not ready. They are not knowing the high level of the imposition of legal framework, and they are sometimes in illegality about the legal framework of Europe and France. And it's really important for our territory to be in a better understanding of what is the legal framework of sustainability and resilience. And it's an important step to be in the best way to be a learning territory. And it's the third step that is important. After another cycle around this model, the second cycle, it's beginning by an indicator, a really important indicator about the transformation of our economic model. If the step we know after great work with all actors, we know that after the step of high level of information, after the step of a better knowledge, biggest knowledge of and high level of information in organization, and a best level of legal framework, if the three indicators are well building, well doing, we can try to put a transformation of whole economic model to trying to go outside, more outside of the market, like the biggest way to build an economic model. I know that because it's important to understand that the biggest problem of our global change is coming from the building and the how it's work the economic world model now. And the economic world model is building around the market. And the market is building around competition between actors. If we want to change the rule, if we want to change the rule to be more sustainable and more resilient, we have to trying to put more cooperation inside the economic models of our territories. And cooperation, it's not competition. It's that why we are trying to change the economic model to be less in the market, less in the competition, and more in the cooperation. And that's why it's the other indicators, the capacity of cooperation of territories actors, it's really important. It's something probably one of the most important of all models, that we know that in the territory, the cooperation, it's one of the best way to be resilient or to be in a sustainable development. And cooperation, it's something really working like something different of market and competition. And the ultimate indicators of this model is the most important for us. And it's the most important because we can try to have a sustainable model, to have a resilient model if the inequalities of people are staying like today. The reduction of social inequalities is the most important thing that we have to do to trying to change our territories, trying to change our model to be more resilient and more sustainable. But it's the most important, but it's the most difficult for our territories because it's something, the social inequality is something about the world model of our social economic model. It's something more about decisions of our state. And it's really difficult for a city, for an area to trying to put some change to the reduction of social inequality. But to change the social inequalities, we know that in our territory, we have to work with little local authorities. We have to work more in the connection between the biggest city of Clermont Ferrand and the little local authorities around. And the reduction of inequalities in our territory, it's probably more a socio-territorial inequality. That we're trying to reduce the inequality between biggest city and little city, little village, all around the biggest city. And trying to change this inequality is working for social inequality too. And we are working around these indicators to train to put a better mobility system, to put a better numeric system, digital system, and trying to put a better food system in our territory. All these 6 indicators were building with all these actors that I spoke to you before. And it's a collective work. It's a work between the research, the socio-economic actors, local authorities, and it's whole indicators. That it's working for whole city or area because it's really a picture, like a picture of whole ecosystem, whole territory. And why it's like I put here a double helix modelization, because all these indicators are working to put the sustainable development and resilient way in the center of our development. But we have a double helix strategy to trying to use these indicators. In every indicators, we can have a first strategy. It's an adaptation strategy. What is adaptation strategy? It's more like the sustainable development. It's a step-by-step change, step-by-step transformation to be more sustainable. Then the adaptation strategy, it's the first strategy using by the actors, trying to put more sustainable practice in all our practice. And it's a step-by-step change and transformation. And it's really important because when we are building a good sustainable development, it's lessening our vulnerability. Then that's why the second part of our strategy, it's a mitigation strategy. It's more about resilience. It's more about crisis. It's not a step-by-step change, but it's another strategy around more what's about crisis. what kind of practice, what kind of response we can have in crisis situation. It's not exactly the same paradigm. It's not exactly the same way to do, not exactly the same practices. That is why in every indicators that we are using to put this model for better sustainable development and resilience, in every indicators, we are always two kind of practice, two kind of tools, two kind of knowledge using in dialogue between mitigation and between adaptation. And it's that way we are using this word, that double helix model. Now, just to finish the presentation, after like 1 year and a half of work, we are starting a big program for 3 years with all these actors that I said before. And in this program, and firstly in the first year of work, we are understanding that it's more difficult to put this model, it's more difficult to trying to put the dialogue between adaptation and mitigation in our strategy for the biggest city, for Clermont Ferrand, and for the metropolitan area. It's more difficult to be in the learning way for this kind of city, the biggest one, than for the little one. It's really easy for us to work with village, with little city, because the people are working in this kind of place are more adaptive, more in capacity to be in response faster than in the biggest city. The biggest city are a big institutional kind of matching. That is that why we have a big problem to be in a sustainable and resilient strategy, efficient in the biggest area, in the biggest city, and it's easier in the little one. That's why we are trying to use this model more in the little place, more in the mountain, more in village, more in little place, and trying to be in an experimental way with this kind of actor, trying to show at the biggest city, and it's probably the most important of our presentation, we are trying to show at the biggest city how the little one can be in a learning way, and how the little one can show the way to the biggest. And it's really interesting to see how it inverse of what we can think at the beginning. And it's a great understanding of our work for today. It's probably the first one of the best people, the best way, the best area for sustainable and resilient strategy, the little city and the little place, where for the biggest one, it's more difficult, and it will be probably a good knowledge for the biggest one to see what happened in the little one, because this kind of model is working very well in the little one. I spoke a lot and really fast, and I hope that it was clear for everyone. And if you have some question, I'm totally ready for.
Thank you very much, Nicolas, for your presentation. It would be very interesting. This is the first comment on the work that you've done. It would be really very interesting to have the other slides translated in English. So if you could do that, we would really appreciate, and if you could send it to us, it would be a good thing. While you were talking, there were questions that were asked in the discussion, and Elisa, for instance, asked 2 questions. What is the place of learning in what you've presented today? The first thing is, because you mentioned, the different strategies that are implemented here, that what is the place of learning, and learning in a lifelong learning perspective or strategy? Could you be more specific? And there is another question then after that, about the climate change and the fact that what about the attributes of learning cities, particularly suits for climate change mitigation work. So could you be more specific on these 2 points?
I'm not sure that I really understand that. I want to be sure. The first question is about
May I jump in? It's my question.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Just go ahead, of course.
I want to be sure.
Okay, so one, I really like your double helix of mitigation and adaptation intertwined with each other. That just makes intuitive sense, and I really appreciate that. The other thing I really appreciate is just this, we hear so much about the economies of scale and that cities are the way to go for sustainability. And to hear you say, well, actually the smaller communities can learn faster, that's very refreshing. Thank you so much. So my question was, when you had your graphics up, well, first, just thank you again. That's very good. Thank you. Your graphics up, you were labeling them learning cities and this and learning cities and that. And I'm wondering, are you talking about learning cities in the global network of learning cities, UI Institute for Lifelong Learning sense, or are you using it more broadly? And regardless, what about learning cities is kind of the opening or the reason to work with learning cities in particular around sustainability and climate mitigation? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's important to be clear with that, and thank you for the question. For us in Cisco, we are thinking that every cities are learning cities. Okay. Because we are thinking that every kind of actors have the capacity of being in the learning way. It's not always something using by these kind of factors like a marketing image or marketing things. It's not always a narrative thing for local authorities. Some kinds of cities are using learning city like something to say we are in this kind of way to be better. But I think we are thinking in Cisco that like we can see in whole field, every city, since the little one to the biggest one, every cities are in the way of learning, because it's a social building. It's a social necessity for all local authorities to be in this kind of growing up, this kind of be better, the little one to the biggest one. That's why for us, learning city, it's all the cities that we are working. We don't do discrimination between different kind of city. We are thinking that she can be all in this way, but sometimes some cities are saying that, are putting that in the front of it. But in the reality, all the cities are trying to be better and trying to be in a learning way.
Thank you.
That's what we're using for.
Thank you.
Well, I have personally a question, but because, well, this is really scary what you said about the small cities that are, you know, fully aware of what is, or if I well understood what you said, that are fully aware of the problems that are ahead and that have quicker responses to what is going on than bigger cities. And in fact, there is a constant urbanization. So we have bigger and bigger cities, people willing to live in cities. And in fact, what you're saying is that in big urban areas, it's much more difficult to have an implementation of the different strategies and ideas that you've presented. So what do you think should be done to change or reverse this kind of course? Because this is unfortunately a basic reality, the growing urbanization.
Yeah, thank you. For us, our epistemology way to do some research is using the epistemology of Edgar Morin, the complex epistemology, epistemology of complexity. And in this way, we are always doing some research around the connection, the dialogue. The most important, it's not to have a better knowledge around what are doing a big city to learn, what are doing separately a little city to be better, to learn. No, the most important for us is to understand that if we are thinking that the little one can be in the learning way faster than the biggest one, and at the same time, a lot of people and more people are living in the biggest, then the problem, it's more important for the biggest. The solution, it's in a dialogue. We are thinking that the best way to be a learning city is to be in dialogue with the others, not to be inside a whole properly city, not to be in a way to be a learning city. No, the best way is probably to be a learning territory with a good dialogue between little one and biggest one, because the biggest one have the power of financial way and the little one have the power of the knowledge. And the dialogue between the little one and the biggest one, it's probably the best way to be a learning territory more than just a learning city. In that way, we are always doing our research around the connection, around the dialogue, more than around something special. In that way, we are always in something dynamic, something systemic. And the system, the learning system, it's a dialogue between little and bigger cities.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. Well, other participants, are there people willing to ask Nicolas questions on his presentation? Well, if it is not the case, then thank you very much for your presentation, and
thank you.
I'll have some time to talk about this during the next UCAN conference, because we said that it would be good if some people representing Cisco could attend the UCAN conference in Budapest. So let's say that hopefully in the months to come, we'll have the opportunity to talk face to face about all this interesting subject. So thank you very much indeed, Nicholas, and we'll talk about this. Could you stay online for a little while, please? I think that now the floor is Carme's. So Carme, would you like to say a few words about the next presentations?
Yes, I only will share the screen if Nicolas stops his.
Sorry. Yeah.
No problem. Okay, very quickly to talk about tomorrow's presentation, which is going to be with Annalisa Reimer, who is here with us today. So we'll have the pleasure to listen to you tomorrow. And then on Friday, we'll have a panel. I hope that the presenters can actually participate in this panel, and Seamus will moderate it. There will be some questions that he will share with you. And we have the honor to have Xavier Prats-Monet with us as a guest. I don't know if you know him, but he was the General Director of DG Education and Culture, and also DG Health in the European Commission. So I'm sure that he has lots of experience and a lot of information that he could share with us. And he is now currently working at the Open University of Catalonia. So very much connected to universities also. And he's really very interested about new ways of learning and how to transform things into a better place. So I'm really looking forward to hear Annalisa tomorrow and then to listen to the panel on Friday. You are all welcome to join us.
Well, thank you very much indeed. And let's see each other tomorrow then.